Well, participant friends, today again we are to come back to the field of educational theory. We started to discuss about naturalism. In the last class, means the class when I started to discuss about naturalism, we discussed about the exponents of naturalism. And in today's class, we are to discuss so much well about the philosophy of Rousseau, which has special importance for all categories of students. And this is the last, repetition of the last class. And the repetition is only to help you to keep link or to maintain link with the class which we witnessed long back and which we are to discuss today. In the last class we had discussion relating to the exponent or advocate or supporter of naturalistic philosophy, and we found that the exponents of the naturalistic school of philosophy or naturalism are Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and he was born in 1712 and died in 1778, and he was born in Geneva I have already mentioned 1712. His father was from France and mother from Switzerland. And today we are to discuss, let us see the next slide. We are to understand the philosophy of Rousseau so much well for understanding naturalism in extensive way. Means Rousseau is basically the exponent, one of the exponents of the naturalistic school of philosophy. And by understanding the philosophy of Rousseau, we can understand naturalism so much well. And even in some level of our education, we are to write in detail about Rousseau so much, extensively. And for understanding naturalism here, we have mentioned, we are to understand the philosophy of Rousseau. He was the father of child-centric tendency in modern education. So modern system of education, once you study or try to understand the speciality, it is child-centric, it is learner-centric, it is not book-centric. But in ancient time, education was totally book-centered, knowledge-centered. And present system of education is learner-centered education, or it is child-centric education. And the name of Rousseau has close connectivity with this trend of new, educational objective, which is mainly concerned with the demands and qualities of each of the learners. And when we see the life of Rousseau, we found that being deprived of the proper attendance of his mother because of her demise, just after 1 week of Rousseau's birth, he became the victim of misfortune in the early part of his life. Rousseau had to suffer much because within 1 week after his birth, he lost his mother. Let us see the next slide. Being guardianless in a sense, Rousseau became the victims of bad habits like stealing, lying, burglary, playing dirty tricks, etc. during his childhood days. Becoming ill-bred, apathetic and dishonest in his early part of life, Rousseau lost his interest for formal traditional schooling, and that's why he, in a sense, become much interested towards the field of nature, and he favored, learning, remaining in the field of nature. Let us see the next slide. Becoming disinterested for formal education in totality because of his very hopeless life situation, Rousseau got hold of a profound curiosity in the study of biographies and histories of the contemporary periods. He loved interest in, traveling, and with such habits in course of such traveling, he gradually developed immense love towards nature. Means he was much interested in a sense. Here we are to write, making the sentence correct. In traveling, means Rousseau was interested in totality, on traveling, and with such habits in course of such traveling, he gradually developed immense love towards nature, and this is the background, depending on which Rousseau formulated the philosophy of naturalism. Let us see this. The next slide. The habit of wanderings and the experiences gathered by such activities, means the activities of travel, help Rousseau develop natural love towards the beauty of the world of nature, and this characterized his philosophy of life, action, and education. Rousseau's life was totally formulated. It was totally changed, and his life, his action, and his education become much more natural, much more naturalistic because of his life situation, or because of his life experiences and life misperceptions. Let us see the next slide. Love towards nature gradually became the unique feature of his personality, and unknowingly he started becoming the preacher of his philosophy of life, action, and education, encompassing the natural love towards nature. This S is to be deleted, because at the time of saving the slide, this S is being printed here. So friends, love towards nature gradually became the unique feature of Rousseau's personality, and unknowingly he started becoming the preacher of his philosophy of life, action, and education, encompassing the natural love towards nature. Let us see the next slide. In the science course of life, at the age of 29, he settled in Paris, and situation compelled him pay deep attention towards spatial and political concerns. He was much attentive towards the socio-political status of the poor, the oppressed, and the degraded of the society, and he started raise voice for the rights of such deprived sections, because of which French Revolution resulted, and we witnessed drastic changes in French social system, in educational system, in political system, and the contribution of Rousseau in changing the socio-political, cultural, and educational scenario of French society was much more, and his philosophy of life, action, and education also was influenced much with the help of his interest towards nature and towards the activities of the field of nature. Let us see the next slide. With such philosophy and concerns, Rousseau steadily became famous as a censor of civilization. This is very important. With such philosophy and concerns, Rousseau steadily became famous as a censor of civilization. In the year 1750 with the help of prize-winning book, that is a discourse on the moral effects of the arts and sciences. The identity of Rousseau became social, means people, the world came to know about Rousseau with the help of the writing of this prize-winning book, a discourse on the moral effects of the arts and sciences. People came to know about Rousseau, and he increasingly started writing on different socio-political and educational issues. And in the educational fraternity, his name become much important. Let us see the next slide. In the year 1752, the origin of inequality among men was published, another book. In this book, he laid the axe to the root of the social system of Europe. In the year 1762, the Social Contract, another book, a book where Rousseau completed his raid against the political, basis of government got published. Next, let us see. In this book, Rousseau propounded a revolutionary theory of state on the basis of the natural rights of man. His inclinations this way towards natural justice of the deprived section were focused by the great saying of the book, man is born free, but everywhere he is insane. This is one of the greatest, quote of Rousseau, man is born free, but everywhere he is insane. And by saying this way, Rousseau favored free education, and he, at the time of explaining about the basic sources wherefrom we can learn, Rousseau explained that we learn from men, we learn from things, we learn from matter, and that's why man is born free. This is the explanation of Rousseau. But everywhere he is insane, means the artificiality of social bondage and connectivity. Connectivity has long been damaging human relationship or damaging human dignity in social life, in political situation, in cultural scenario. Rousseau explained so much well. Let us see the next slide. With the help of the writings, Rousseau tried to aware the deprived section about their legitimate rights, and he was successful in creating a ground for raising voices by the people against the socio-political odds. Such activities helped Rousseau become known as one of the originators of the French Revolution of 5th May 1789, 9th November 1799. So friends, why French Revolution resulted, the contribution of this particular educationist, a man who had to face many misfortunes. The background of French Revolution was, totally, it was built with the help of the sayings of Rousseau and the activities of Rousseau. And Rousseau was, in a sense, he is a great revolutionary, he is a great fighter, he is a great naturalist who always, fought for natural rights of men, and who always raised the voice for learning, living natural life. Let us see the next slide. For Napoleon Bonaparte, a military leader. Who is Napoleon Bonaparte? You should better know. A military leader. His concerns concerning to Rousseau is very important. Who, allied himself with the, Jacobins had there not been Rousseau. This is the explanation of Napoleon Bonaparte. Had there not been Rousseau, France's revolution would not have been possible. So friends, in sensing the socio-political scenario of France or France society, you see the contribution of Rousseau was much more important, or Rousseau was huge. And Rousseau not only contributed to bring senses, radical senses towards the socio-political situation of French society, but also he, with the help of his educational concepts and ideas, you see, helped to bring senses towards the ideas of modern education. And only because of his contribution, modern education was well known as the system of education which has the concern of the learners. Means, in a sense, modern education become child-centric, learner-centric in place of book-centered education system, in place of book-centric tendency. So friends, this is the basic explanation relating to the philosophy of life, philosophy of action, and philosophy of education of Rousseau. We are to continue our discussion, and by explaining, by studying, by scrutinizing the philosophy of Rousseau, our concern relating to naturalism will be very clear, and we also will be able to write about the educational philosophy, political ideology, and other philosophical perspectives or parameters of this great naturalist or great natural educationist. We are to stop here today. We are to continue our discussion. Please see all these so that you can understand Rousseau so much well, and by understanding Rousseau, you can develop proper concept, proper idea relating to the philosophy of naturalism, which is very much important for all categories of learner. So thank you so much for today, and we are to continue our discussion just to help you to make the concept of naturalism so much clear. Thank you so much.